Are You Afraid of the Dark has forever held its twisted claw around my horror-craving heart. So it goes for swaths of anxiety-addled millennials who grew up with this anthology creepshow that originally ran on Nickelodeon from 1991 to 1996. Every week, a group of teenagers called the Midnight Society would meet in the middle of the woods to tell scary stories, and that was it. Twilight Zone for tweens. Lately, I've been re-binging this show like it's Zebo-branded chocolate pudding. Aside from the nostalgia factor, I enjoy dissecting horror narratives that can't rely on blood or even a body count to thrill its viewers. Are you curious to reunite with the Midnight Society but not sure where to start? Or maybe you've never seen the show and you're wondering if it has any legit scare fare to offer? Keep watching for my list of the 10 spookiest Are You Afraid of the Dark episodes to ever haunt the Saturday Night Snick lineup. These tales may not have Jigsaw's blood-covered bear traps or Leatherface's gnarly dinner parties, but they boast crackerjack storytelling, poignant coming-of-age character arcs, and indelible horror imagery that will have many fully grown tax-paying adults reaching for the light switch. Number 10. The Tale of the Crimson Clown. Insufferable Sam steals money from his responsible older brother Mike, who retaliates by making up a story about the Crimson Clown, punisher of naughty children. That night, the Crimson Clown comes to life and terrorizes Sam for real. The character design of the Crimson Clown hits that perfect sweet spot between campy and all-out creepy. The degree to which he's made of simple childlike shapes is full-tilt comical. The spherical head, diamond eyes, and banana-like mouth feel like they're based on doodles from a 5-year-old's handy-dandy notebook. Yet it's disquieting how the clown's face changes, although we never see it move. And the sheer relentlessness with which he stalks the maybe-asleep Sam starts to feel like a Lynchian madhouse. Also, in this creepy meets campy department, there's something laugh-out-loud funny, but also weirdly mean about the clown displaying a red nose circle with Sam's name crossed out. Sometimes the cruelest bullying tactics are the simplest. I also have a fondness for the episodes that manage to lend decent character beats to the Midnight Society, even though we learn little about their lives during the 3 minutes of screen time they're afforded each week. In this episode, Gary tells the Crimson Clown story after his little brother Tucker wrongs him. The story causes Tucker to relent and apologize. This character-forward use of the show's wraparound device helps to mature the relationship between Gary and Tucker, an evolution that culminates in Tucker inheriting the leadership of the group years later. Number 9. The Tale of the Quicksilver. Fresh Prince royalty Tatiana Ali guest stars in this moody installment, but her character appears to die in the prologue when she fails to trap a ghost in an amulet. Later, two brothers move into her old house and must stop the ghost from claiming their lives too. The tone of this show ranges from cartoony schlock to emotional realism. I vastly favor episodes like this one, which feature grounded creative choices that lure you into the fantastical doom and gloom. Guests Tatiana Ali and Kyle Ali Sharon, real-life brother of Jason, who played Frank, turn in absorbing performances worthy of the most addictive nighttime soaps. Their melancholy and terror around this ghost feel justified, given the stellar creature effects work by the makeup team. In addition to having my nerves jangled by the Quicksilver ghost, I remember being quite puzzled as a kid by the moral of this story, explicitly stated by Teller of the Week, Kiki.
Magical powers can be used for good, but if you don't know what you're doing, back off.
I remember thinking it was kind of weird that a kids show's lesson of the week warned about magic in such literal terms when, magic isn't real. Now, as an adult, I appreciate that we could interpret magic as a stand-in for real-life forces like privilege or technology. Fuck Around and Find Out might be the contemporary version of this lesson, but nothing beats the ominous vibe of beware magical forces. Number 8. The Tale of the Bookish Babysitter. Couch Potato Ricky meets his match in Belinda, his mysterious babysitter who goads him into reading from her stack of magical books. The stories come to life, and he's got to fend off a slew of supernatural creatures before they close the book on him. Bookish Babysitter functions as a sort of sampler platter for the show's overall palette of monsters and tonalities. It offers one monster rooted in swashbuckling adventure, one rooted in spectacularly unconvincing visual effects, and one rooted in genuine terror. I'll be real with you, this damn ghost is a large part of why this title ended up on this list at all. Anik Chartier's effects makeup team knew how to contour and shade their ghosts to precise nightmarish effect. And whereas the evil spirit in, say, The Tale of the Quicksilver sports a devious grin to allow some camp to blunt the overall gloomy vibe of that episode, the proportions are reversed in Bookish Babysitter. Director Ian Peterson presents the king's ghost as a pained specter, a disturbing punctuation mark in an otherwise goofy outing. The episode as a whole has its charms too. Belinda is a beguiling character, bizarre hairdo notwithstanding. She's a mischievous mentor we could file under chaotic good, a moral alignment box I wish this show had explored more. The episode also seems to poke some good-natured fun at its own viewership, reminding their devoted Snick fanbase that books can provide slow-burn excitement and immersion that quick-hit TV just can't match. Corporate-produced content encouraging you not to consume it? Now that's scary. Number 7. The Tale of Apartment 214. After her parents separate, Stacy moves into a cramped apartment with her mother. In need of new friends, she bonds with an old woman next door named Madeline, but when Stacy ditches her on an important night, the jilted Madeline terrorizes Stacy and clarifies the significance of this anniversary.
That day is the day I die!
Show creator DJ McHale has expressed how he prioritized the characterization of the kid characters over the monsters of the week. This episode is a great example of a horror narrative presenting a character relationship so compelling you forget that you're watching a horror until the horrific thing rears its ugly head. Stacy and Madeline forge an intergenerational friendship that feels as sweet and tense as the chords played in Hacks or Only Murders in the Building. Countless episodes of this show cram their back halves with cat and mouse chases between kid and monster before the kid finally wins the day. The second act here is indeed an extended monster chase, but this time it's bleaker than usual, as the monster isn't really a monster at all, but someone whom our hero had actually gotten to know. Hats off to actress Beth Amos, whose portrayal of Madeline is something of a high-wire act. She's endearing in the friendship scenes and chilling in the scenes where her ghostly nature overtakes the proceedings. Yet even when she blossoms into the full-fledged villain, she manages to pierce you with the pangs of her isolation. In the end, the monster here isn't Madeline at all. It's Stacy's relatable scheduling screw-up. This story is unsettling in the way it explores how blow-offs and grudges can wreak havoc on a friendship. Pure horror for socially anxious viewers who can't stop asking, "Are you mad at me?" Number 6. The Tale of the Lonely Ghost. At the behest of her mean girl cousin Beth, people pleaser Amanda falls prey to the classic dare to spend the night in a haunted house trope and encounters a little girl ghost trapped in a mirror. This is only the third episode in the entire series, and it exemplifies how the show hit its stride right out of the box. In contrast to the later season's penchant for juvenile comedy, an austere vibe pervaded that first season, which also included perennial hits like Twisted Claw and Laughing in the Dark. Watching the show through the unforgiving veneer of today's HD screens, it's now plain to see that the early seasons were captured on film, where later years looked like they were shot on video. It reminds me of the unfortunate cost-saving measure that Rod Serling attempted in 4 episodes of The Twilight Zone, which all look like awkward reams of surveillance footage. So when it comes to atmospherics, the first season reigns supreme. Lonely Ghost benefits not only from the show's first foray into creepy ghost imagery, but also from poignant storytelling moves. Amanda helps the wayward spirit reunite with a loved one, and these climactic scenes are sweetly acted. Meanwhile, in the real world of the Midnight Society, a similarly sweet romance buds between Shy Guy Dave, this tale's teller, and try-hard Princess Kristen. It's kind of adorable how Dave tells an emotional ghost story to endear himself to Kristen, even gifting her a key prop from said story. And cuter still how she seems to reciprocate with her own Lovelace tales in later episodes. Lonely Ghost was crafty and earnest, enough to follow in the tradition of gothic horror and play up the unlikely role of love and romance in scary stories, capitalizing on these tonal harmonies early while the show was quickly discovering its distinct voice. Number 5. The Tale of the Super Specs. Mary Beth and her boyfriend buy a pair of novelty glasses from shifty shop owner Mr. Sardo.
No mister, accent on the t.
A recurring fan fave who makes his first appearance here. When Mary Beth puts them on, she sees black-clad humanoid figures who may or may not be inhabitants of a parallel universe, striving to cross over into ours. According to show creator DJ McHale, the first season episodes often riffed on classic horror stories as a way to defend against potential viewer complaints. If parents decry the show for being too scary, Nickelodeon could respond by saying that these tales were merely celebrating authors like Edgar Allan Poe and W.W. Jacobs. The show never received such complaints after all, and it's just as well. I'm not sure those angry parents would have acquiesced had the network assured them that Super Specs was an homage to gore master John Carpenter. This episode ditches the satirical leanings of Carpenter's They Live in favor of a simple chase and evade approach, buoyed by the antagonist's minimal costume design and physicality. The horror tactic of unexpected absence, that is, not seeing a face where you expect to see a face, is plenty to inspire shivers. The cast also elevates this half hour. Super Specs features a rare instance in which our leading guy and gal actually date as opposed to merely pining for each other. Gradney Lelia Valdemiro as chill girl Mary Beth has remarkable chemistry with Eugene Bird, who plays goofball Weeds. Yes, the guy's name is Weeds, kicking off a series-long trend of bizarre character names. See also Rush, Day Day, and Clarice. Super Specs is notable for a few other series rarities too. It's the only episode in the original run to show members of the Midnight Society away from the campfire. Meanwhile, for a show about a writer's club, it's strange that no one ever seems to give each other constructive feedback, no? Well, the unthinkable happens here. In the prologue, Kristen flat out tells Gary, this episode's teller, that his stories have been stinkers lately, which apparently leads him to panic and plagiarize the greatest living horror filmmaker on his VHS shelf. Number 4. The Tale of the Dark Music. Any YA horror series is going to tackle our universal fear of basements sooner than later. Hell, Stay Out of the Basement was R.L. Stein's second ever Goosebumps entry. Here, an entity lurks behind teenage Andy's cellar door, and it lurches to life the more it hears music. At first, Andy is terrified by the entity's illusions that try to lure him to his doom, but when the entity asks him to feed its souls, Andy realizes that he's found the perfect methodology for disposing of the neighborhood bully, and even his little sister. Another banger of a season 1 outing, dark music exemplifies a welcome trend among the early episodes: unhappy endings. See also Pinball Wizard and Super Specs. One of the peak thrills of anthology horror is that any fate can befall the protagonists, who aren't tied to any long-running story. The show embraced this narrative darkness early on, but dialed it back as the series progressed. McHale notes that Nickelodeon rarely pressured him to make the show less scary, so the later tendency toward happy endings appears to have come solely from the self-regulating writers. Dark music arguably boasts, well, the darkest ending of the series, as it doesn't simply feature the protagonist trapped for good, it features him eagerly selling his soul to the devil. Even in today's more complex YA scare fare like Stranger Things or Fear Street, it's hard to imagine a previously plucky hero simply breaking bad because it feels good. Kudos to dark music for subverting the didacticism that typifies most YA programming in favor of letting kids be kids, even if that means letting kids indulge in a sadistic outcome. Number 3. The Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle. Anyone who watched the show as a child has that one. The one episode that seared disturbing imagery into your brain and kept you staring at your bedroom ceiling at night. Well, welcome to mine. The Tale of the Shiny Red Bicycle kicks off with a grisly opener. A boy named Mike fails to save his best friend Ricky from drowning. Years later, Mike is still plagued with grief, which only worsens as Mike sees Ricky's ghost alongside the bike he was riding when he perished. This is the 4th episode that wound up on this list thanks to the hair-raising appearance of a mute ghost. But the makeup and editing, and in this case a Vaseline filter that feels very Drag Race Season 1, aren't the only elements heightening the fear factor here. Shiny Red Bicycle is also psychologically terrifying for a YA narrative. Mike is in a dark place compared to many of the show's protagonists, grappling with his survivor's guilt as his family coldly tells him that it's time to get over his friend's death. Aside from a throwaway mention of Mike's doctor, there's no reference to therapy or grief counseling, so Mike has few, if any, lifelines afforded to him. With his grief and guilt on overdrive, every sighting of his dead friend leaves him that much more destabilized, and actor Matthew Edison does commendable work in pushing Mike to the ragged edge. Alas, the episode culminates in a squeaky tidy ending. Ricky isn't haunting Mike to guilt him, but to prevent the drowning death of Mike's little brother Ben. As Mike saves the day, he and Ricky share one final goodbye before Ricky appears to move on for good. I suppose anything less happy would have been too grim for a kid's show, but by embracing a treacly sentiment like "the ones we grieve watch over us," the show misses an opportunity to venture a more meaningful insight about grief and closure. Still, as a chilling ghost yarn with a palpable undercurrent of teen angst, Shiny Red Bicycle is a tour de force. Number 2. The Tale of the Dangerous Soup. All hail the once and future Scream Queen in our midst. 2 years before she sliced our way into our hearts as Sidney Prescott, Ms. Neve Campbell turns up here playing Nani, a waitress who works at a restaurant owned by recurring mischief maker Dr. Vink.
With a v.
The star attraction of his culinary establishment is a soup that goes for $100 a bowl. The secret ingredient is none other than fear itself, which Vink extracts from his unwitting waitstaff.
It knows what scares you.
While the worst fears realized story is a well-worn trope, see also Nightmares from Buffy or Ex-Cops from the X-Files, this episode offers a novel spin on the premise by suggesting that one can actually metabolize fear into a delicacy. Writer DJ McHale offers a patina of class satire by portraying the upper crust as literally feeding off the suffering of the working class. McHale could have gone deeper with the fun and games of this class warfare had this installment been the series' lone two-parter instead of season 4's tiresome Cutter's Treasure. McHale, of course, focuses on the fears come to life aspect of the premise, delivering grotesque imagery that includes an axe on a pendulum and more than one goosebumpy encounter with snakes. Lest he reduce all the characters' fears to easy-to-quantify phobias, he does make a more sophisticated character choice with Reed, Nani's coworker who grew up with an abusive uncle. Vink terrorizes Reed with an illusion of his dead uncle's resurrection, underscoring that the trauma of abuse doesn't simply dissipate when the abuser dies. A weighty insight for a TV Y7 show. Dangerous Soup also features the series' sharpest Midnight Society scenes of any episode. It's confounding that Frank is one of the series' most infrequent tellers, given that actor Jason Ali Sharon is one of the only orators among the cast who applies a sinister edge to his line readings. Here, Frank polls the group about their worst fears. With typical teen braggadocio, Tucker claims that he's afraid of nothing. When Frank concludes the story, he suggests that Tucker opens a mysterious box to prove his claim, but Tucker chickens out and flees the scene. To the group's amusement, Frank reveals that the box contains exactly what Tucker's afraid of.
Nothing.
That conclusion simply blew my mind as a child, and as an adult, it's still satisfying to ponder the clever wordplay, as well as the underlying insight about how fear is inherently all about perception. Number 1. The Tale of the Dream Girl. Most of the episodes on this list earn their spot due to their uncanny horror imagery, but Dream Girl has almost none. It does, however, feature 2 standout performances, an ominous score, some unique retro-inspired aesthetic touches, and a cleverly designed twist that all coalesce into the most poignant installment of the series. Young repairman Johnny finds a ring amongst his belongings, and he's soon haunted by visions of a young woman who claims to own the piece of jewelry. Johnny and Erica, his sister and best friend, work to uncover the mystery surrounding the titular specter. This episode stands out as the most resistant to campy theatrics, with nary a cackling villain or Scooby-Doo chase scene in sight. Instead, director David Winning focuses on extracting 2 gorgeous performances from his lead actors. Fab Filippo highlights Johnny's gentle, yearning qualities. He strikes up adorable on-screen chemistry with Andrea Nemeth as the sweet and melancholic Erica. Her performance takes on a whole new dimension after all the ghost's secrets are revealed. Nemeth's line readings and reactions are enough to justify an immediate rewatch. The carefully honed performances are matched by Winning's choices to infuse the production design with 1950s-inspired aesthetics. Letterman jackets, slick hairstyles, and ice cream sundaes served at the bowling alley all call to mind the teenage romance and longing of Grease or Rebel Without a Cause. Those youthful pangs are further emphasized by Raymond Fabi's score that sounds like a broken music box.
What the?
His eerie musical motif soon gives way to a full-on careless whisper-flavored saxophone.
Who are you?
This tale's teller Samantha had a preference for stories that blended horror with romance.
Who says love isn't scary?
With Dream Girl, Sam, that is writer David Preston, delivers the genre fusion to heartbreaking effect. This episode works because it frames young love itself as such a mysterious force, it can feel as supernatural and unknowable as a ghost from the great beyond. As much as I cherish Are You Afraid of the Dark for the creepy, campy schlockfest that it is, I wish more of the episodes had gone in the direction of Dream Girl, gothic horror with emotional oomph, all set to syrupy 90s sax. But what were your favorite Midnight Society tales? Let me know in the comments. And also let us know, which Are You Afraid of the Dark alum had the most surprising future? Tucker growing up to be Gretchen Wiener's Squeeze?
Take your top off!
Megan growing up to be Kim Bauer? Or this guy who didn't really go anywhere but knows that he's Knuff?